Welcome back to the Dream Architect Life podcast. Brittany Anderson here with you today alongside my co-host Brian Sweet, and we are bringing you none other than the wonderful, the brilliant, the inspirational Mary Morrissey. Mary has made it her mission to empower people to create and live a life that they love. For over 50 years, Mary has studied the art and science of transforming dreams into results. Mary is the founder of the Brave Thinking Institute, the world's premier provider of transformational training and coaching. Through life-changing books, events, and programs, Mary has helped millions of people tap into the power within them to achieve new levels of success and experience a deeper sense of meaning and purpose. Mary holds a master's degree in counseling psychology and an honorary doctorate in humane letters. She has addressed the United Nations 3 times, co-convened 3 week-long meetings with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and met with President Nelson Mandela in South Africa. She has written 2 best-selling books, No Less Than Greatness and Building Your Field of Dreams, which became a PBS special. Today, Mary is focused on a bold dream, 1 billion dreams achieved around the world. That dream begins with you. Mary, welcome to the show. We are so grateful to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here too.
Well, we believe in just cutting to the chase, getting right to the meat and potatoes of things. Mary, can you talk about some of the inspiration behind your latest book, Brave Thinking?
Thank you. That's a great question. I got very interested in what really produces long-term transformation. Not just a little altering of results, but transformation where a person's dreams, what they would truly love can actually be their results. That study took me, frankly, all over the world. And it took me into ancient philosophies and religions and the new and emerging psychologies, the quantum physics, where we began to see the science behind how things occur. And my interest was I'd had such a powerful change in my own life that I wanted to see how to codify this. I mean, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to really how things work, whether you call it the infinite or you call it the universe or whatever name you have for it, life. And I discovered over the study that in the United States, there were 2 revolutions. The first was a revolution for the freedom of us as Americans to have our own country. The second was a revolution of thinking that occurred about 50 years later in the northeast part of our country, where they began to incorporate some things that brought more and more awareness that would then unlock the power that's in each one of us to actually create and live a life we love. Over the years of study, I discovered that there are 4 major areas in our lives where we're going to have results. If we just keep breathing, we're going to have results. We have results now. How then do we transform these results that are not fulfilling to us into results that are? But the 4 areas are health. You can measure the results we're having in our health right now, in our relationships, how much quality, how much depth, fun, support, aliveness, our vocation. Is it fulfilling or just something we trade time for money? Do we have a purpose inside that? And then the quadrant of time and money freedom, so that we have the freedom to go where we want to go, have what we want to have, and more importantly, I think, give what we really want to give. And so the development then of a vision that includes all 4 areas. And after I started studying this in 1971, so it's been 53 years, and then I didn't start teaching it until I started, till I'd had a decade of study in me on this. And so I've been teaching now for over 40 years, various versions of how to help people have lives they absolutely love, not in the absence of circumstances or situations, but even in the presence of them. So that's what the book was about. It was about showing you that inner code, and then so you can apply it to your own life.
Well, I have to say that Brian and I are both huge fans. We've been huge fans of your work for many, many years. And then we were at Joe Polish's annual Genius Network event. And for our listeners, Mary and Joe had an amazing conversation on stage. And the one thing that I think you have been so successful in over the years is helping people to truly get clear on what their vision is. And there's a part in the book where you talked about how, brave thinkers really have a clear vision and they're not crushed by failure. So, Mary, can you give some context around, like, if somebody's struggling to have that vision? And a lot of our listeners, for context here, are people that have had great success. They've done really big things in their lives. And that kind of what's next can be scary or overwhelming because they attribute so much of their success to where it has been versus where it can go. So, can you maybe share some insight on how to cultivate that vision?
Sure. We've been trained to ask certain questions of ourselves as we're deciding what we're going to be and what we can have. And from that early study of the second revolution of thinking that occurred in Concord, Massachusetts with Emerson, Thoreau, that early group who moved from how do we create this to what would we create and unleash the mind, and first lean into, if you could wave a magic wand or if you could have it be any way you want, what would give you the most life? What would you love? And they defined a different kind of thinking that we get trained in, which is what they defined as common hour thinking. Everybody gets trained to think this way, which is, if I want to do something, well, where's the money going to come from? Where's the time going to come from? So we're trying to manage circumstances and situations to match for what we want versus freeing the mind first to really begin to explore with freedom, trying on possible futures. What if it were that? What if it were that? And one of those, or more than one, will give you like, oh, this expansive energy of more life, more aliveness in us. But the ability to do that, that's why your guys' work is so important with Dream Architect. You actually help someone think from a result they would love, because so many successful, very successful people get trapped in the success they've had and the fear of losing that success if they make a shift or a change or really move into what they would most love to be doing. And so your work then helps them understand that the success that built what you have built was, you were a major part of that. And you're taking you with you. The awareness you gained, the expertise you have, I mean, all of that is available for a more expansive, more life-giving version of what your life can actually be. And I do believe people who live, we're talking about longevity a lot these days. We know through the studies that people who have fulfillment and relationships, as well as purpose and meaning, and they, have a regular engagement with their body, walking or whatever the version of expression of more life moving through the blood flow of our systems, is all part of why we stay longer and have healthier lives while we're continuing to live a life we love.
Well, I think it's, at least we see a lot of people just let life happen to them instead of making it happen the way that they would love. And one of the interesting things that you said in the book is, don't live somebody else's dreams. And I'd love you just maybe comment or expound on that.
When I work with clients, whether large groups or small, and we go into the phase of dream, there's two phases, actually three phases of dream building from my research. The first is in the blueprint. So if you've ever wanted a dream house, your first step, you don't just go to a builder and say, build me something I would love. That builder, no matter how good they are, can't build something you would love unless you define that. So there's the blueprinting of what you would really love your life to be like, and imagine it. I usually ask people to imagine it 3 years from now, not just 1 year, because our memory is full of what we've ever accomplished in 1 year, but it's not so sure what we might accomplish in 3 years. What we usually find is once you get a crystal clear vision, it can happen way faster. But so, and you're going to imagine something in each of those 4 quadrants, but it's like, if money weren't the issue, if time weren't the issue, if my education, my age, all the limiters that we tend to put on ourselves based on that common hour thinking, we set it aside. And that's why working with you guys is so helpful, because you help them set it aside so that they can actually allow themselves the freedom to dream, imagine, blueprint a life they would absolutely love, is really phase 1. Phase 2 then So usually when we have a dream, we have something we would love to do or have, or that we've never done before. So that kicks in the sense of, well, how am I going to do it? You know? So we teach people in our work to set the how aside. You know, set the how aside long enough to get a crystal clear vision, and then recognize that, you know, we use our cell phones all the time. We use remote control all the time with our television. So you turn on your television, the program you're seeing, the pictures you're seeing are an exact match to the frequency you're tuned to. And you can't get off CNN, problem news, and go to Discovery or Romance or anything else you want if you stay on the same frequency. So my dream is a different frequency than the life I've been living. So the next phase is, and it's almost counterintuitive, that we start imagining ourselves living that life, even though our current life isn't yet that. It's not a current match. Henry David Thoreau did an experiment. They were doing this experimental thinking, and many, many things came out of those early conversations in Concord, Massachusetts, with a new kind of thinking where circumstances and situations were not what they focused on. They focused on, well, what if? You know, one of them at that table was Bronson Alcott. He had 3 daughters, Louisa May, probably the most famous with her book, Little Woman. But the other was a painter, and they were very accomplished, very young girls at this time. But in the school systems, they were not honored. It was girls, you know, or second class, and it was very much the culture. So his question was, well, what if we had a school where both male and female students were honored equally, and there was no corporal punishment? That was an innovation that had not yet come forth. But they got clear about that. So if you think right now in your own life, what would be the most important thing you would love to transform? So transform, it means to go beyond the current form of something in your life. It might be how much time and money freedom you have. It might be work that's really meaningful, or it might be that love of your life that's been on the back burner, and sometimes for years and years. What would it really, or having the health, the dynamic health that enables you to live a life you love? What would be the thing? And just bring it to mind. So you know that right now, each of us has a current relationship with the forms of the life that we have. If we want to transform, it's not going to happen to us. It has to happen with us, meaning the major dominant frequency we're focused on is not getting to that result, but coming from that result. So when you change your remote control first, and then the pictures change. You dial in the frequency of the exact person you want to talk to, and then everything flows in that direction, and there's a connection made. So Thoreau did this experiment after sitting at the table and saying, I don't want to just talk about this. I want to do a living experiment. He did a 2-year, 2-month, and 2-day experiment, Living by Walden Pond, very famous book he wrote. But inside of that are real clues about transformation. And in his conclusion, part of it early on, he said, I went to the woods because I wanted to discover what life had to teach me, and not find out when I died that I hadn't actually even really lived. What Thoreau did not know is that he would just barely meet his 44th birthday. Emerson lived well into his 80s, but he got sepsis after he a razor, and he got infected, and it went through his body, and he died. So here he is doing this experiment and writing about it. And he says in the Walden book, he says, I had scarcely lived so he built a little 1-room house. He wasn't a hermit. He didn't stay there all the time. He was a surveyor, a very famous surveyor, with his brother in that area, the Cape Cod and Merrimack River and others. He writes, I had scarcely lived at the lake. He called it a lake, 7 days, when I realized I was taking the same path to the lake every morning for my morning bath. And I realized if I, who have set aside this time to totally live on the green growing edges of what life is teaching me, if I am taking the same path every day to the lake, how much must I be walking down the well-worn thinking paths that I've been thinking before this experiment? And then he writes, I want not only to be a great surveyor of geography, I want to become a great surveyor of my own inner cosmology. So in phase 2 of dream building, phase 1 is having a crystal clear blueprint of what you would truly love, regardless of circumstances, situations, and conditions. Number 2, then, is to become a vibrational match. And I know this can sound strange. You know, people today talk about the law of attraction. The law of attraction is actually a secondary law. The primary law, invisible, just like gravity, is the law of vibration. Everything that you can see in form is a reflection of the vibratory match for that. So a great marriage means you are on a match for being the person who can have a great marriage versus trying to get somebody else to be the person that you want them to be. I mean, it's a very different experience. So to become a vibrational match, Thoreau writes at the end, I've learned this at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams, not just that, you can't advance confidently in a direction you don't have a crystal clear picture of. I mean, even vision drives everything. Even when you get in your car to go to the grocery store, you have a vision of the place, the grocery store is that you're picking out of many different grocery stores. So vision drives everything. If one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams, not trying to get to the dream, endeavoring to live the life they've imagined. If you got a vision in mind and you are currently doing everything you can do to be the person living that life, which means if you're doing some mundane thing like washing dishes, what is the person who's having the life you would love thinking? They're not thinking, oh my God, how long is this going to take? And do I even deserve this? And maybe this is the wrong time to be. No, that person is not thinking those thoughts. That person is thinking different thoughts. And so as you begin to incorporate being the person who's living the life you've imagined, even though all the things out here have not yet shifted, things do begin to shift. So it's blueprinting, it's bridging, but you can't just think about it. He says, if you do this, if you advance in the direction of your dream, endeavoring to live the life you've imagined, you pass an invisible boundary because the things that seem to be stopping you that you thought were real, they were just another form of energy that you are more. You and I did not create ourselves. There's call it life, call it whatever you want to call it. There's this power that, call it life itself, that rises up in us and proclaims itself. You know, I am me, you are you. I mean, it's this life expressing itself. And it sends us signals that when we're on the right track of more life, we feel expanded. And when we're on the track to more contraction, we're going to feel contracted, like, oh, this is going to get in the way and I'm too old or whatever, these self-limiters. So the building part, this is where the how happens. So I've got a vision. I'm now practicing being the person living that life. So what do I actually do? So this is where you start with to do the thing you can do with what you have from where you are. And you remember while you're doing that, that there's always more that you can bring to this. So it was Thomas Edison. Well, Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you're right, and you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. Because the thinking makes it so, not the conditions. Where Edison said, when someone says to me, I've done everything I can do, I always know they haven't, because there's always more we can do, another step we can take. They asked him, how did you manage having over 10,000 quote unquote failures on your way to developing the incandescent bulb? And he looked quizzically at them and he said, I never had a failure. It was all feedback. Now, that's a different perception of events. And we've all had quote unquote failures. We've all had things that were disappointing and tempted us perhaps to just contract and live small lives. But the reason you're listening to this podcast and the reason you guys are doing the great work you're doing is that didn't win with you. Not that we haven't had those thoughts or feelings, but they didn't win because you brought a different thinking to, all right, this is learning. This is just part of the journey of my life in learning. I've had many of those things, some of which would seemed devastating at the time. And at the moment I was in them were, but they're not the whole story. They're just part of our story if we make it that way. So doing the thing we can do with what we have from where we are, remembering there's always more. We have more available to us than we're currently seeing. But by taking the step we can take, you actually see more. More is revealed. And it is frankly, dream building is one of the most fulfilling ways to live, because it's not just about getting to something. It's about having an alive life while you're living it.
Hey, Brittany here. In case you hadn't heard, our latest book, Dream Architecture, is available for the taking. Think about it like this. What is your biggest, wildest dream of what retirement could look like? Not the dream that your friends have, or your parents maybe had, or your coworkers. Your best dream, the unreasonable one, the one that you might have trouble admitting even to yourself. So that is what the Dream Architecture book is about. Hop on over to dreamarchitecturebook.com so you can start dreaming big today. Mary, I think that was packed with so much value. And there's a couple of things that I think we should pull out of this. So number one, I'm so glad that you went the direction of touching on failures. I think at one point you even said, what is it? You have 2 black belts. Is that the thing? One in success and one in failure. I think we heard you say that before. So I think that's important to call out, because I think that sometimes the notion of dreaming big can be romanticized, where people don't realize how many times we have to, like be the arrow to pull back in order to launch into something great. And oftentimes those pullbacks can be paralyzing, I guess. So one direction that I really want you to go here from the book is you talk about distractions, and you talk about how they can show up in interesting ways and maybe pull us away from, what our true destiny is and what we're meant to do and what's meant to be. So can you talk about those distractions a little bit, maybe how to, number one, notice them, and number two, overcome them?
Sure. But for knowing what they are is key. So you do a blueprint. So here's a version of you living a life you absolutely love. And you decide, okay, I'm going to do that thing. And let's say I'm going to write a book. So I'm going to write 3 pages every day. I'll do that for a year. I'll have a big book. And so you go to sit down to write the next day. I'm sitting here, I'm going to write the 3 pages. And you're starting to write. And then this thought comes, you know what? You'd be more creative if you got your email done first. Or you'd be more creative if, wait, you put the clothes in the dryer, and if they sit there, they're going to get wrinkled, and then you're going to have to iron them. Better get up and go get that laundry moved. And if it's not that, it'll be something else. Why? Because the pattern of your vision is a different pattern than your current life. So there's 2 sides to our nature. I mean, there's a part of us that does want to go forward, truly. And then there's a part of us that's anchored to the life that we have, and is like a gravitational pull to the familiar. So that paradigm of the life that you have created, and you can see it in all your results, that life has a vibrational pull to it like gravity. It's as strong as an undertow in the ocean, a massive undertow. So you want to respect that, so that you can notice how it's seeking to keep you in a comfort zone. Even if it's not that comfortable, it's a zone, so you can actually, moment by moment, or little incremental change. I'm a big believer in baby steps. You take a baby step and you just keep taking them, you can get all the way up Mount Everest. So you don't have to do anything massive. You could just make incremental changes each day by living more and more from your vision. So, but the things are going to get in the way. There's 3 major ones. One is distraction. That's probably the most that it's like, the laundry, the email, the this or that, the dog needs to go out. And then you feel like you're doing something, but your energy is now not focused on what it is you said was of most importance to you today. The other is delay. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it later. I know I said I was going to start today, but I'll start tomorrow. And you can have a ton of good reasons why that is, but it's still the same thing. It's that pull back to the familiar. And if you delay enough tomorrow turns to tomorrow, and pretty soon you're months down the road and nothing really has transformed or changed. So just delay, distraction. Another one is dissuasion, which is, I don't know why I thought I wanted to write a book anyway. I'm probably not a good writer. And why would I even want to be doing that? I mean, I think that was, and you lose your true energy that you came alive with when you were visioning, you came alive with when you came up with that blueprint, but now you're talking yourself out of it because the old pattern isn't an author. The old pattern is you being something else. And the last one isn't one that happens all the time, but it'll happen if you're making a big, bold step, like leaving a career and starting another, or other things that, and so you say yes, you get engaged with a vision, you say yes to it. And then whether it's that day or next week, there'll be a moment, this is predictable, there'll be a moment where your nervous system, it's like the whole nervous system fires off. Well, we call it DEFCON 1. It's like, what have I done? Oh my gosh, what have I done? And that's all it is that the old life is beginning to die and it's screaming for itself. And so you have to be the one who can navigate, because you are more than the old life. You actually are more than the new life. You have, every one of us is far greater and has more potential than any circumstance, situation, or condition. And the real gift of dream architecting your life and dream building, I believe, isn't what you attain. It's who you become in the process, because you know yourself to be so much more than you've ever known yourself to be. And that you're part of something that has called you into being. And, you know, every blade of grass today has got that impulse of becoming more. That life shooting through it to become a better blade of grass today, and it'll just shoot right through cement, seeking the light. That every tree is like, you know, seeking to be more, because that's life expressing itself. And it's no different with us. Those longings we have and the discontents we have are two important signals, I believe, from the soul, but definitely from life, however you relate to it. That longing, oh, I wish I could take my kids here. I wish that, you know, the schools that they really want to go to, I could be able to provide. I wish that, and so that longing for more life. And the other signal is discontent with a part of your life that is constricted or contained. So those are, I believe, holy signals from life. You were meant for more, but it just lays there as discontent or longing unless you do something with it. That's why when we pour it through the dream architect system, or the, you know, and or the dream builder system, it just like unlocks that, so that you can actually not just think about it, but have it.
So Mary, one thing that you made me think of as you start talking about the subconscious mind and even this whole like discontent and all the things that come with it. One of the things that I think about that we hear often are, I'm too, insert a descriptor. I'm too old. It's too late for me. I don't know if I can do that. I've done this and this is all I know. So it's all those kind of limiting beliefs that I think can block people. And I think one of the powerful messages that you have is training your subconscious mind by using the term up until now. So can you elaborate a little bit on that and how that can maybe help overcome those limiting beliefs?
Sure. Along the way of my study, and you know, I'm part of the study myself, how this really, how we anchor change, how we allow for more than we've known that we can actually have or be or do. I noticed in myself, so I believe the number one awareness tool is called notice what you're noticing. That you, in the absence of noticing, patterns just run. But when you keep that part of you, this is really the work of Emerson and Thoreau to others, was that if you can notice what you're thinking and notice what you're feeling, those are early predictors of where you're headed. So if your thinking is in alignment with the vision you're holding, then you are way more likely to see and make use of opportunities that are right here, where the other person who's complaining about why they can't have it will just never see. It's not that they're not there, but that level of awareness is like a shroud on our ability to see. capitalize on opportunities. So notice what you're noticing. And then as you begin to notice what you're noticing, you have the ability then to say yes and no to the thoughts you're going to empower with repetition in you. So remind me the question.
Yeah. So we were talking about the subconscious and the training of the up until now.
Okay, thank you. All right. It's okay to play this. I don't care.
I love it. This is the real raw behind the scenes. Everybody thinks podcasts are so polished.
So I noticed in me that these thoughts were, well, who do you think you are? And well, here you are, at this stage. And one day I was, what can I say to myself that will shift that in the moment that I'm noticing I'm thinking it? And so then those words occurred to me. Oh, so yeah, that's actually true that I'm thinking whatever I'm saying. And because there's facts to bear that. Yeah, that's true up until now, because I am more than what I've been up to now. So yes, that's true up until now. And there's an interesting thing that I began to discover happened not just in me, but every individual who applied this. There's a liberation. It's just a slight sense of more freedom in us. Like, yeah, that's true. It's up until now. So what's going to be now? So up until now, that, and now, one of the other, this is a simple tool, but it really does help when you're saying, yeah, but you haven't been good with money, or how you haven't been, a client will say that. It's like, so that was then, this is now. Because you are always available. Every one of us is available to a new now when we make a decision for it. So doing the dream architect, where the possibilities rise up, and then a part of you is not going to feel worthy of it. Not because you're not, but simply because you haven't yet brought that into existence. So it's very, very helpful to not go Lone Ranger on this, but to have a support structure who helps keep you inside both the vision and then the actions required to bring it about, and actually the inner transformation that you begin to see. No, this actually can belong to me. This is really my life right now becoming itself. And having a support structure is key, because that pull to the familiar is so strong that without support, it's going to pull you back. It's more powerful than you alone. That's why we send a rocket to space. 90% of the fuel is used in liftoff. And then without a booster rocket, it just collapses down at the gravitational pull of the Earth. So when you get to the edge of everything you've known, you want that booster rocket, a support structure that help you break through the gravitational pull of a life that maybe has been wonderful, but it's not what's seeking to come next. It's not that full dream architecture. And to go past what you thought you could have and who you could be. So that support structure is key.
Yeah, I think that is so important for people to realize. So, wherever they are in life, that's just today, and tomorrow can always be different. But, fear gets in the way, and, we need to, as you say, don't let it be your master, but be it, a companion. And I think the other thing that's really important is those words are really good to say, but a lot of times, like, what you need to do to get to your dream presents itself, but you got to take some action at some point. So do you have any tips on how to recognize it, or what to do to make sure that, you don't miss those opportunities?
Well, it's a lot about just daily practice, because then you become more aware. So here's the vision. Here's all my, language about why I can't have it and what's in the way. And then you go, okay, up until now, what step can you got to anchor it, because it's, vision, vibration, action. Those three things go together that transform our results. So what's the step I can take today? One of the things I train my clients is the 5-minute power move, because they'll think of things they can't do today. Like, well, I can't. It's like, what can I do? What can I do in 5 minutes? And sometimes it's a phone call to someone and you're on your way. But so we teach them how to download, or think coming from a mindset, there is something I can do today, even in 5 minutes, it's going to move me in the direction of my dream. So come up with some ideas. Which one of those? Which one has the most, Edison would call it the most electricity. He said, I had all these ideas. I never met a piece of paper I didn't like. And I filed all my ideas. He says, but I couldn't act on all those ideas. So what was one I could act on today? And sometimes it was a 5-minute move. And he became the most prolific yet inventor ever to walk this planet. So we all can invent a life we haven't yet lived. But there are certain things that actually keep them, starts making some movement, and then you continue with it and it gathers some momentum. And then you turn around and it looks like it dropped in out of the blue. It didn't drop in out of the blue, but it can appear that way. So, yeah.
So, Mary, first of all, I could listen to your teachings literally all day long. But I want to call back to something that we said in the introduction here. And with your goal, your big dream being to help 1 billion dreams be achieved, 1 billion be realized. Do you know how many, where are you at today? How many lives have you touched? How many people have you impacted?
We are in the process right now of, in fact, we just had a 4-day founders meeting, Brave Thinking Institute, and began to codify, really. We since we declared it a couple of years ago, we've kept track, but there's so many behind. We've also come to realize that there are 4 stages of, 4 stages of dreams achieved. So the mega dream is, the one that is all the many areas of your life transformed at the highest pitch you can imagine. But along the way, there are maybe micro dreams, mini dreams, major dreams, and then mega dreams, so that it helps you move up a spiral of becoming. So you can acknowledge, my son, John, had a heart attack. It's probably 6 years ago now. And he had been a high executive. He'd been working lots and lots of hours, and he decided to make his health result a new part of a life that he would love living, of course. And so he posted something just the other day and said, I was out, I'm headed for my stress test with my cardiologist in June. And so the last year, I've been gearing up because I want to have, last year he told me I was at athletic level. I don't want to lose that. I'm progressing. So I have this vision for myself, and I'm out on my 3-mile run today. And he says, is there a part of me that told me why I shouldn't run today and it wasn't convenient? And it was, of course, but I override that. And I'm serving this dream. And this is a micro dream today. And then he holds up the towel and it says dream achieved. Because this is part of that larger vision of dynamic, life-giving longevity of a life he absolutely loves. So it's important to honor the baby steps, honor the micro moves that actually are part of building a life you love. Many dreams, Matt, one of my other sons, he does our love and relationship division and helping people find the love of their life, really of any constellation, and the moves that are made between longing, wanting, and not having to having a life you absolutely love. So these are all micro, first wins, mini wins, then major wins. You find somebody and you're now engaged, and then of course the win of commitment. So think in your own life. So if you have a mega dream where it's all these 4 quadrants lit up with just life you absolutely love, what's a step you could take today that would move you in the direction of that dream? You take it. That's a win. You can acknowledge that. And then what happens is once you start acknowledging that, it gets easier to make those moves. And the more of them we make, of course, the faster it all occurs.
Amen to that. And first of all, before we ask the last couple questions for today, Mary, if somebody's listening to this and they're going, how do I get my hands on this book? How do I learn more about how Mary and her team and Brave Thinking Institute, how do they serve? Where do they go? What do they do?
Let me tell you, I wrote it down here. You're going to go to bravethinkingbook.com. bravethinkingbook.com. You order a copy there. And then we're going to give you some bonuses because of your podcast and the wonderful work you guys are doing. We'll give you a guided meditation bundle that will help you. I will walk you through meditations I've done to help you unlock your vision. So you'll be able to design your own blueprint. Then we wrote 100 common hour thinking thoughts, how you can notice when I'm in a common hour thinking thought, and then how to transform them. So that's something I put together for you. And then there's an affirmation collection called Winning the Battles in the Mind. So those are all gifts that come with this. I mean, you can go to Amazon and order the book, but if you go through us, then we can actually help you with more resources. So go to bravethinkingbook.com. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Mary. Those extras are awesome, but I seriously can't stress how amazing that book is. If you want to accomplish more in life and have a life you just can't even imagine, boy, what a great book to help you head in that direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
And Mary, we're big believers that oftentimes people can maybe find elements of inspiration in other people's stories. So all things considered, all of the research and the studying and the true life cases that you've seen, when did you know that you were called into this space? Like, what was your moment of reckoning where you're like, this is what I'm meant to do, and this is what I was put on this earth to be?
Well, I don't know that there was one absolute moment, but there was definitely an era. It was October of 1971, and three things occurred that at the end, within 60 days, I felt like I'd been living in an attic of myself, and I'd found my way to the front door of myself, and here was a technical world of possibilities that I had no idea of believing that could happen. One of them was a lecture I went to hear. And the man who had the lecture, giving the lecture, said, I don't remember, I'm young, in my early 20s. And he said, nothing is bad unless you think it's bad. And I'm at the age where I know everything. And it was like, well, that's not true. I'm gonna kind of cross my arms. That's not true. There's bad stuff in this world. Car wrecks are bad, murder is bad, war is bad. And he goes, I know what you're thinking. He says to the whole group, I know what you're thinking. And I'll agree with you at the level of fact, there are things we all want to change. But at the level of truth, there is a seed of good in everything. And you have the ability to find that good and capitalize on it, no matter what the experience is. So here's a tool I want to give you that you can experiment with. The next time something happens that you think, oh, this is bad, hit your internal pause button and wait 3 days. And during that 3 days, you're not just idly waiting, you're turning up the volume on your own curiosity about what possible good there could be in this circumstance. And then after 3 days, if you can find no good in it, go ahead and get upset. But 9 times out of 10, if you actually do this, you are going to find some good that you can capitalize on. So we heard that, my husband and I, my kid's dad and I heard it, went home. This is Sunday. 2 days later, I was, our young boys, I was preparing dinner. I'd come home from the university, and he walked in and he just looked ashen. And I said, well, what happened? And he goes, there was a massive layoff at work today, and 100 of us lost our jobs. I don't have a job. And I immediately started to go into panic, like, oh my gosh, if you don't have a job, maybe I'm going to have to quit college. And this was my thinking at the time. And later in life, you look back and think, I wish I'd gone over and put my arms around him and say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. But that wasn't me at the time. It was, oh, how is this going to affect me? And then I said, wait a minute, that guy Sunday said, when something happens that seems really bad, hit your internal pause button. Where is that? I didn't even know I had that. Where is it? And he says, and then wait 3 days. So this is Tuesday at 5. This will be Friday at 5. And during these days, just think of every possible good. I can't see one possible good in it. And he says, well, my kid's dad says, well, let's let's feed the kids, get them to bed, and then we'll sit down with some paper. And I said, okay. He was actually better at it than I was at this point. We sat down together and I said, I'm just not seeing any good in this. And he says, well, I drive 90 minutes to and from work. What if I could find a job closer to home? And that'd be good. And I said, well, how? And I would go immediately into the how. And one of the things that over the period of time I learned quickly was leave the how aside, get clear about a what. So it was, well, how are you going to do that? I don't know. But if it did happen, it'd be good. And I said, okay, then what if I could make more money? How are you going to make more money? Well, you're at the top of the team scale. He was a forklift driver at that point while I'm getting my education. And well, what if I could make more money? And what if I could work shorter hours? I said, how are you going to make more money and work quarter shift? So I'm the the Nelly that says it can't happen. But he was holding that. And then I went, okay. So I said, well, here's the deal. If somehow you could work closer to home, make more money, and work shorter hours, all of that, but any one of those would be good. And so with that, ideas started coming of places he could apply. So then we listed 3 or 4 places he could apply for some kind of truck driving job, which he was an expert at. I went off to school Wednesday, came home, and he said, well, I've got 3 applications of places that are considering hiring. If they're not hiring now, they might be hiring in the next few months. And then the next day he came back. Let's see, that was Wednesday. And he said, I've applied 3 different places. And Thursday, when I got home, I came in the house and he was whistling. I said, what happened today? And he goes, in those days, it was still the days where you delivered milk in bottles door to door.
Mhm.
And near where we lived, there was a dairy, a very famous dairy in Portland, Oregon, named Alpenrose Dairy. And they were hiring drivers for some routes. And so he could ride his bike to work. So, I mean, that was something he loved doing. And it was, so he got a job at Alpenrose Dairy as a white suited milkman delivering milk to doors. And it was more money. And because it was a route, if he got his route done early, he didn't have to work 8 hours. It was do your job. And he loved it because he's very personable, and he loved all the people he met and the little old ladies coming out in their bathrobes he'd help them get their milk inside. And it was the first time in my life when I realized that by applying this technology, I didn't suffer waiting for an event to change before I could feel better. Up until then, all my emotional well-being was attached to circumstances being what I wanted. And I began to recognize, oh, I can have a circumstance without the circumstance having me. And that was a portal of what else is inside this portal, where we can have more transformation quicker, sooner, and allow ourselves to be creative, even in circumstances, situations, and conditions. So that was, and then what happened in my life over just the next few months, Brittany, I wanted everybody I knew to know about this. And I was reading books, and my parents were going, oh my God, Mary got religion. And I realized within a short amount of time that trying to put it on people wasn't the answer, that I had to live into it enough to let my life show what it did. And then some will be interested and some are not. And there were family members who were never interested in it, and others who were. And that had to be okay. I was interested in it. And that began, well, what is now many over 50 years of study and 40 years of teaching.
Wow. Mary, the first thing that comes to mind is I had a mentor tell me one time that the person you are best suited to serve is who you used to be. And I think you just embodied so much of that. And I appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability in saying, hey, I wasn't born this way. Like, this was a craft that I had to learn, and I had to practice, and I had to constantly put into play and be conscious of. So I just so appreciate you sharing those stories. And I think that is a beautiful representation of I think what we could all embrace.
Yeah, so such helpful information too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Brian, before I ask my final question of Mary, is there anything else that you want to bring up, ask, throw out there?
No, I unfortunately, we could probably do this for like several hours, because I'm just fascinated by this topic, and Mary's one of the, creme de la creme on, dreaming big, but, we better probably get to that last question, unfortunately.
Well, I've got to give the plug again, and we'll make sure this is all in the show notes, but go to bravethinkingbook.com and take Mary up on the offer. Those bonuses, I just know through the teachings that we have studied over the years of yours, Mary, that those are going to be so incredibly valuable. So with all that said, my final question is, what didn't I ask you that I should have?
I'm not sure you should have asked this, but it is a question. Does this work for everybody? Does this work for everybody? And the answer is 100% yes. Everything that appears actually comes from a pattern that is invisible to us. But the one that is generated upon, like the more we think about this, the more we act from it, it actually begins, we know this in physics, it begins to build mass. And that mass has a pull to it. So circumstances, situations, and conditions do begin to show up. When William Murray is his name, the man who wrote the book Absence of Evidence, and the tagline is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So this infinite potential that we live and move and have our being in, the potential that'll be ours is the one we most resonate with. So if we resonate all the problems, we resonate, I don't have what it takes, we'll just go along that travel line and produce what that thinking is. But we have a chance to change that. And for all of you who come here to Dream Architect, you have a major opportunity to go deeper in the work that Brittany and Brian are offering you, because your life's on the line. The life that you could have is right here. But understanding some ways in which you can unlock that and have that is one of the greatest gifts you'll ever give yourself. It's been a privilege for me to be with the two of you. I was looking forward to this.
Well, Mary, we were so looking forward, and we are incredibly grateful for you spending your time here with us and with our listeners too. I think that time's the only commodity we can't make more of, as much as we'd like to.
Yeah. And what a great message to leave with everybody. So 100% of the people can have better lives. You just got to be open to it. And some of the, tricks of the trade that you've learned over the last 40 or 50 years are just so helpful to make it happen.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of the Dream Architect Life podcast. If you liked what you heard, you found some golden nuggets in here, be sure to share it with a friend. And if you'd like to be the first to know when the next episode drops, be sure to give us a like, and you'll be there on the list. We'll catch you right back here next time.
Bye.